Hi, my name is Greg Doering, and I'm the owner and broker of GDAA Property Management. Today we're here to give you a couple of tips, 5 specifically, on when you're the listing agent selling an investment property with an existing tenant, how to make the transition a little smoother and get to that closing table a little easier. The first thing is, when you have a contract on the property, call the tenant and remind them that the tenant's lease is still enforced. It's enforced through the duration of the terms of the lease, and you want to give them that reassurance that just because the owner's selling the property, that they're not going to have to move out or the big terms of the lease are going to change. So by giving that simple call and reminding them that their lease is enforced, it will make it a little smoother emotionally for both the tenant and the buyer. The second step is transfer of security deposit. You want to make sure that you have an accurate accounting of the security deposit, and that security deposit is transferred smoothly and easily over to the new buyer of the property. The worst thing you want to do is get 6 months down the road, the tenant moves out, and then everybody's scrambling to find out where the security deposit is, how much it is, and where it is. So by doing that on the front end, taking care of that, make sure there's a full accounting of that, it'll really help things down the road. Third step, proration of rent. Rent is, if it's $1,000 a month, divided by 30, and it's the 15th of the month, you just take half the rent. So you want to make sure your prorated rent is taken care of depending on what day your closing date is. So the owner gets part of the rent up until the day of closing, and the new buyer receives the remainder of the rent, the prorated rent, for the remainder of the month. So make sure you know that ahead of time. You can adjust that obviously as closing dates change. But again, the owner owns the property until it sells, and then the new buyer has the remainder of the prorated rent. Fourth tip, new owner contact information. You want to really ensure that the tenant, the existing tenant, has the new owner contact information. They need to know where to make their monthly rent. They need to know who's holding the security deposit, and they need to know who to call in case there's a maintenance issue. By being proactive on this, again, it helps with timely collection of rent, and all maintenance issues are taken care of in a timely manner. And the fifth and final tip would be all documentation. Obviously, a copy of the lease, so everyone knows the full terms and conditions of the lease, and there's no confusion between the buyer, who is now the landlord, and the existing tenant. If the application is available, that is helpful to transfer over for legal reasons in case the new buyer needs that down the road. All accounting, a full record of accounting while the tenant was an existing tenant there for the term of their lease, would be very protective to the tenant and helpful to the owner. And then the last thing, again, is we're reminding you, because it's so important, the transfer of security deposit. Ensuring that the full accounting of the tenant security deposit is transferred from the old landlord to the new landlord. At the same time you're doing this, you're going to tell the tenant how much is being transferred. So in case there's a discrepancy, that can be taken care of on the front end and clarified before the closing, instead of 6 to 8 months down the road when the tenant moves out. I hope these tips have been helpful. My name is Greg Doering. I'm the owner and broker of GDAA Property Management, and we're here to make you look good.